And basically on this screen, as you can see, you should have a PDF version of your SurveyMonkey, which you'll need to attach to this section. If you notice down at the bottom of the screen, there's the Add Attachment button. So you would just click on that, and then you would just write a short description of whatever your attachment. You can just put SurveyMonkey. Obviously, go in and select whatever the file and hit save, and then that will upload that to the grant. The rest of the questions, just kind of write a brief description, basically how you are going to be completing this, whether or not your funding exceeds $25,000 or not, and then just go over the excuse me, the estimated count of individuals that will be impacted by your facility. So once you answer all those questions and upload your SurveyMonkey, you can go do the completion status as complete and then hit the save button, and that will take you back to the application summary screen. The next section is procurement details, and this one does have a bit of some questions to it. We'll try to answer them a lot best we can. You'll see there's a lot of technical wording there. Basically, if a item on your grant is greater than $10,000, it will need to be competitively selected. What PCCD typically deems to be competitive selection would be 3 bids. If you're unable to get 3 bids based on the situation, it's possible we could do a sole source, which is below. But for the most part, as long as you get the 3 bids, you'll be fine for this grant. So scroll down. And basically, you'll have a few questions here. The first one is, does this application include any procurements by non-competitive proposal? If you're having everything bid out, you would just select no. If there is something that you wish to purchase through a sole source request, you would select yes, and then fill out questions 3 and 4. Question 2 is basically just saying that you will keep documentation to support everything. So we would expect to see yes there. And should you do request a sole source, you will just need to justify it with questions 3 and 4. Obviously, we have had some agencies in the past get the Blue Point system, and obviously that comes from just one vendor. So they were required to fill out this section, and obviously we'll review any requests and approve them or request that the item be competitively selected. So you just kind of follow that, and then you can mark the completion status as complete, and then go down and hit the save, and that will be marked as complete. The next section is the approval checklists, and basically you just kind of have to read each question and answer yes or no to whether or not you've had any type of audit done regularly, if you are required to have a single audit performed, and then basically if your board of directors regularly review your financial records, and then also is whether or not the financial officer and project director have more than 3 years of experience with your organization. And then finally, whether or not the agency, your organization has a segregation of duties policy. Once you answer all those questions, you would mark the completion status as complete and hit save. All right. The next section is actually budget details, but we're going to skip over that one and do that one last because that is the one that gets the most attention for the grant. So I'll skip down to executive summary. And here you just kind of need to give a very quick description of your project, and then excuse me, and then mark the completion status as complete and hit save. Okay, so the next in process section is the worker protection certification section. So basically you'll kind of just see all of this information here. You'll obviously have the question below basically stating that you agree to the certification. And then once that's answered, you would mark your completion status as complete and hit save. All right, next section is fiscal accountability. And it's pretty much like the other sections. There's a bunch of terms that and questions to read over. Just go through each question and answer them to your best of your ability. You can feel free to reach out to PCCD if you have any questions regarding any of the verbiage in these sections. We'll do our best to help you, but just kind of go through and read each section and answer. Obviously, do the completion status to complete and save the section. All right, the next section is the Federal Transparency Act certification. And I do want to point out, if you'll notice in red and bold, you are only required to answer question 2 in this section. You are not required to have a unique entity identifier. You can skip that entire question. You just have to go down to section 2. That's primary place of performance, and we'll need the city that your organization is in. So you just type that there. We would expect the state to be Pennsylvania, and then the zip code, and then your county. Those are the only 4 questions or the 4 responses that are necessary for this section. After you complete those 4, you can mark the completion status as complete and save. All right, the next section is the state funding announcement certifications. And this is basically some more of the policies. These aren't federal funds, if you'll notice up at the top. These are state funds, so the federal information is not valid for this. But basically just read through each section. And again, if you need any assistance with interpreting things, feel free to reach out to PCCD. But basically just fill out each question, and then you'll mark the completion status as complete and save the section.
And James, it's Chris again. I would just add that the 4 sections that James just went over, those are all standard terms and conditions sections, like he mentioned, that are in every single one of the grants that come through PCCD. So those are all sections that must be completed and are really standard terms and conditions that everyone must agree to. Thanks, James.
All right, then. Next section is the nonprofit agency checklist. This section, you'll basically see a list of items that are requested to be uploaded. And we do understand that some of these organizations do not have these, particularly the religious organizations, do not have some of the documentation. That's okay if you do not. Please just notate in box 1.1 any item that you are not able to provide, and just kind of like a real brief reason why you're not able to provide it. And obviously, if you're not required to have such a form, that would be the reason. And it's the same situation as this previously. You would hit the add attachment button, and then you would just upload all the documents to this section. And then once you have loaded everything, you'd hit complete and save.